It's Thursday, July 24th. Welcome to Scouting the League. Training camps have all officially started with the Falcons and Steelers vets and rookies finally checking in the door yesterday, while many teams have been at it for over a week. The goal is the 53 for roster numbers, about 45 to 90 if you want to think about how to check those battles. Just head back, listen to our episode from the 15th, all about evaluating your own roster. But the reality is that nearly half of the players currently on the team will not make that 53. Most of those players you will see play in the majority of those preseason games. There's also those 16 practice squad spots up for grabs. But what happens to the other third of the team? Well, some of those players may head north. And today we will talk with our friend of the program, former director player of personnel for the Oakland Raiders, current director of pro scouting for the Hamilton Ticats, Dane Vandernat. First, before we jump in with Dane, let me remind you to go like, subscribe, share this podcast wherever you are listening. And if you're watching over on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend. Hopefully we get some nice listens from north of the border, as we love our Canadian football. Fun game. If you're not looking at it, if you're not watching it now, getting ready for the NFL season, make sure you go take a look. Give myself a follow. I am at Right Step ADV. Give our co-host Neil Stratton a follow as well. He is at Inside the League. And make sure you follow our new home over at Pro Football Insiders. They are at pro_FB_insiders. Dane Vandernat is here. He is at D Vandernat. Check the show notes for that. But Dane, welcome back to Scouting the League.
Hey, happy to be here back with you, Rodrik. How you doing, bud?
It is always good to talk football and to talk people that understand both the NFL and now the new venture. I think last time we had you on, you were just getting ready to go. You headed up there for training camp in this, north of the border, which was in May. A little bit's changed for you. Talk us through that transition to the CFL. What's the big differences? What's it been like with a little bit new kind of football?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It has been a transition. It's been a great learning curve. I really didn't have a lot of experience with the CFL game prior to, joining Hamilton this year, but it's really been a lot of fun. It's really a great organization that, I'm privileged to work with up there. And I've really enjoyed learning the nuances of, not only the CFL and the 9 clubs up north, but, also the players that are up there, the rule changes, the differences. And I'll tell you, that was quite the steep curve there and initially for me. And I'm still learning these rules, Rodrik, as we're going, man.
Yeah, well, it's a new game. It's a different game. It's still football. Again, at a certain level, you're looking for height, weight, speed. The Ticats, of course, you guys are in, I believe, as we're talking, week 8 of the season. You guys are now sitting at 3-2. Dropped those opening 2, have now won 3 straight. Hopefully, again, you talk about scheduling quirks that are different from the NFL to the CFL. You guys are playing the Ottawa franchise back-to-back weeks. Again, you knocked them off in a close game. So, again, hopefully put a little more distance in between you and them. But, again, let's talk about CFL scouting. It is a game older than the NFL that we know it. It is, again, something different. Franchises in the NFL really treat the CFL differently. In Atlanta, we used to watch players, a handful of players. Our GM, Thomas Dimitroff, had some Canadian ties. So, again, we were always more, probably apt to look than some teams. The New Orleans Saints made a number of signings over the years. In Oakland, it didn't sound like you guys were maybe quite as interested. Again, that's kind of the case across the league. Some teams really pay attention, some don't. But talk about the rundown of the type of scouting you're doing for the CFL, both now and then as we get into NFL training camps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're also right there, Rodrik, and that teams, really approach NFL teams that is approach the CFL and CFL scouting differently. From my time with the Raiders, we generally, from our contacts in the CFL, we get a list of handful of guys annually that they thought, we should take a look at that may have an NFL opportunity. And so really that was my only exposure to the CFL prior to, as I mentioned earlier, taking this this new role this year. But, for right now, what I'm doing is one, I'm helping out with our advances of our upcoming opponents. I've really enjoyed that, right? Being remote here in Kansas City and not up in Hamilton, obviously it's a disconnect. And coming from my pro background with the Raiders, it's a new thing for me to be in
Yeah.
season and not be with the team, right? Not out
Right.
at practice every day, seeing the guys, who's healthy, who's not, who's getting better, who may be, trending the wrong way, etc. So it is a little bit of a challenge for me, at least personally, being remote here, but at least doing the advances and collaborating with our guys in house. It does give me a little bit of a feeling of being connected back with the team. The other part that I'm doing right now is obviously gearing up for those NFL training camps, as you alluded to. While yes, we're currently in season, and we're playing our sixth game this Sunday, but we're always looking for obviously players for the future and replacement players if we suffer an injury. So Canadian teams really rely heavily on NFL teams, as to try and supplement in-season talent. And whereas obviously a lot of the guys in the NFL are going to stay in the NFL ecosystem, perhaps there's going to be 5 to 10 guys per team that won't have an opportunity to get back on with the practice squad this year in the NFL, and so may want to go up there and get either relevant game film or more recent game film and
Right.
still have an opportunity to develop and get a little bit better in hopes of potentially getting back with an NFL team down the road.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's always interesting going through the pre-draft conversation with players that they know they're going to be borderline. I'm a back end undrafted free agent. The dream is still there. They maybe still have something about them. It is a question that I have asked a lot of players, like, "Hey, would you consider the CFL?" And there's players like, "Yes, I just want to play ball." There's players like, "No, it's kind of the NFL or nothing," which great. Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to do. Again, it is a hard sport. You're playing for less money in the CFL, but like you said, that relevant film, that recent film from an NFL standpoint, again, there's really any more two places to get it: the CFL and UFL. Anything else, again, agree or disagree, Arena League, a lot of those other spots, that's not relevant film. And again, you get more than about a season out of having that film, then again you go a certain list that is not looked at. So again, that CFL film is huge, and again, it's usually these premier positions, offensive line, offensive tackles especially. Again, you get more of your speed DBs. I know we've had some kind of, you don't call them tight ends up north, but again, they're the bigger wide receivers that have made some transition. So with that in mind, as you're coming to NFL training camps, talk about how you schedule it. Are you personally hitting 10, 15 training camp practices? You're out there, you have a list, you're looking at the back end, you're looking at UDFAs. Are you talking to pro scouts? Are you relying on them kind of saying, "Hey, we don't think this guy has a shot, but he may be for you"? How does that training camp process work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head again here, Roderick, and just in the sense that, one, I'm actually going to go to 7 camps this year, and I'm going to double up my days there. So I'm really going to spend about 2 weeks straight on the road, really between almost the week leading up to preseason game one through preseason game two. And, that was obviously intentional for me. And, one, this is going to be a learning experience for me. It's my first time in this capacity, obviously going to other NFL training camps and speaking with the pro, scouts there and staff members. Really, as the biggest thing that we'll rely on from them is going to be the background, is going to be if they can provide any context on, hey, this guy's really working hard. This guy, brings something to the room. Or, conversely, hey, what, this guy, I don't think he's going to make it, and perhaps for these reasons. So,
Right.
oftentimes it's just that character background, just like when a scout's going into a college, trying to figure out, okay, what makes the guy tick? Is this the right kind of guy? Is this a guy that we want to bring into our locker room and our ecosystem and see if, he's going to have a chance to flourish? Because just like any team, we don't want to waste time with guys that aren't going to be interested. And, obviously we're trying to find the right guys that can add something that perhaps we're lacking presently in Hamilton and are going to help us get over that hump and hopefully help us go win the the 112th Grey Cup here, Roderick.
112th Grey Cup. Again, it feels, it makes you feel old when I remember, Super Bowl's like 30 and, stuff like that. And we're over 50 easily now. And yet you're talking over 100 Grey Cups. And it's a beautiful game. It's a different game. Again, watching it and getting more experience with the CFL. There's still a lot of good players. It seems that you, again, as the director of pro scouting, you're really focused on the pro game, the NFL training camps. That's where you're pulling players from. Does the CFL do any scouting of U.S. universities, of American college, thinking 2026? Are you guys looking at that all? Do you have a college scouting department? Are you doing any work, or is it, hey, we're really just relying on the pro side?
Well, kind of both. And the way that I kind of liken it to is that our college scouting staff consists of me and another American scout that we have. Yeah, obviously, this time of year we're going to be full on NFL system and just looking at guys that are potentially going to be camp cuts and, again, aren't going to have an opportunity to stick back with the NFL club this year. Once we get into really September, October, November, especially, my focus is going to shift to the college game. Obviously, in addition to the stuff I'm doing with advances and helping the Tiger Cats throughout the week, but I'm really going to enjoy doing some remote scouting. Obviously, out here in Kansas City, I've got some Big 12 and some SEC teams, not too terribly far away, even a Big 10 school or not, but really, we get all the CFL teams get all the D1 film, right? So there's not a D1 FBS or FCS team that I won't receive access to, through our film. What we don't receive is D2s. And what's in my backyard are some great D2 conferences, especially here in Kansas and, also in Missouri, up north in Nebraska, down south in Arkansas. So, I'm going to try to, as best as the budget will allow me, Roderick, is get on out to some of these D2 programs, jump on their huddles, speak with some of those coaches, and, really kind of mid-fall focus in on, do they have any players that may be, prospective, pro prospects for us. And then in January, we'll hit the All-Star game circuits pretty hard, right? Not so much the Senior Bowl because we expect those guys to obviously make their way to the NFL, but, the Hula Bowl, the Tropic Bowl, the CGS, some of those lower, if you want to call them lower tier All-Star games, but, they're great for the CFL. They're great for CFL scouts. Heck, I feel like a quarter of the guys I used to bring out to the NFLPA Bowl, they're all up in CFL right now. We've got several of them on our roster here in Hamilton. So it's really cool for me to see those guys flourishing up north in Canada. But, certainly for those types of all-star games, the CFL does invest quite heavily. So once their rosters start coming out in December, January, we'll jump on, those tapes and really try to, get a feel for those guys before we go see them live.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a perfect snapshot. Again, just the NFL, again, we always talk about priority positions. We see more and more, it's a game of the trenches, right? We want to see our bigs, big long tackles, good athletic defensive linemen, and then edge rushers that are really doing it. Is there a position focus, knowing that, again, in the CFL, you guys have some roster limits when it comes to, again, U.S. citizen, Canadian born? Are there priority positions? Hey, I'm going to these 7 camps, 2 days. I really am looking at these positions. Or is it, man, if this guy is a height, weight, speed guy that flashes and we think we have a chance at him, they become a really, really position of interest for us?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, it's the thing I always, and we may have, spoken about this previously, Rod, but, I from my pro background, I was always very cognizant that I was one bad snap away from having a whole new set of needs, right? So, unfortunately, during my tenure in Oakland, we really had an opportunity to be in the playoffs twice. And in 2016, we were able to still get in there. But in 2011, our starting quarterback broke his collarbone week 6. In 2016, with Derek Carr, he broke his ankle in week 16. So at any rate, my 2 years there, we lost our starting quarterbacks, which, of course, led to issues winning games subsequently. But for me, my focus is always on, hey, best player available. Let's get out here and go. Always have lists of guys ready to go. But
Yeah.
to your point, wide receiver up in Canada is kind of I don't want to say a dime a dozen, because certainly we've got some talented receivers in Hamilton. Kenny Lawler's having a great season for us. Tim White, former Arizona State receivers, having a nice season for us. But half your receivers practically are Canadian. And because of the motion rules, right, players can run up to the line of scrimmage, unlike in the NFL. Well, they can start from 10 yards, 10, 15 yards deep and be at full speed by the time the ball's snapped and they're hitting the line of scrimmage. So that really aids, obviously, their ability to get downfield and to stress a defense, unlike in the American game. And so because of that nuance, we don't necessarily need the explosive wide receivers that can beat press coverage, for instance, because there is no press in the CFL.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The line of scrimmage is a yard long anyway. Plus, with these guys in their motion, no one's getting up there and pressing them for fear that obviously you're starting from a static start and they've already, hit their momentum and are in stride. So, there are certain positions that are more premium, obviously tackle, quarterback, pass rusher, the same ones that NFL teams are looking for. We're also looking for, but because of the differences in the games themselves, and because of some of the differences in the schemes and the way that it's played, we can take a little bit of a lesser player, if you will, right? Our left tackle doesn't need to have 34 plus inch arms, for instance. Our defensive ends don't need to have 33 plus inch arms, for instance. So because of those things, sometimes those guys that are a little bit of a tweener for the NFL, that old 3-4 outside backer, designated pass rusher that, kind of doesn't exist anymore in the NFL, we can take those guys and have them as a full down starter. So because of that, yes, we're focusing on a couple of those positions, but for me, in my experience, I'm always just looking for anyone who I think can come in and help us.
Yeah, again, looking for players. At the end of the day, find good players, plug them into your roster where you need them, and you'll be better for it. Well, that is a fantastic Canadian Football League check. And Dane, I'm sure we'll be doing at least a little bit of posting, maybe some pictures of training camps. You can make sure you follow him at D Vandernat on X. The Tiger Cats, come on, give the CFL some love. Give the Ticats a follow. They are at Ticats. Again, Tiger Cats, one of the better, again, if there's anything the NFL could take some notes on, it's some of those logos and mascots we have north of the border. Tiger Cats, it's a hard one to beat. Very unique, very cool. So make sure you check both of them out. Again, give me a follow at Right Step ADV. Continue to check out everything football. Check in on the CFL as we still have a couple weeks here before NFL preseason film and the colleges really get going. Check out some of these CFL games. You can find them somewhere out there online, on TV. Watch ball, keep watching film, and keep scouting.